All right, so for number 10, we're looking at which following functions does not represent, okay? Does not represent the parabola with a vertex of 1, 4 and x-intercepts -1, 0, and 3, 0. So first of all, if I'm looking at x-intercepts, I know that I'm using P and Q, right? Knowing that I know that I'm going to be using P and Q to be able to find that. So if I want to rewrite this equation, first of all, I need to find my slope. All right, I need to find my slope, and actually, I can do that by saying y equals my a times my x minus p, right, times my x minus q. I can do that. So if I fill everything in, right, my xy, well, this is my x and my y, and this is my p, and this is my q. Let's fill it in. My y is going to be 4, and that equals a. I don't know a. My x is going to be 1, so I get 1 plus 1 times 1 minus 3. All right, so I get 4 equals a times 2 times -2, which then equals 4 equals a times -4, or let's just rewrite that as -4a. Well, if I want to get a alone, I divide, so I get -4 divided by -4, which gives me a equals -1. Can I eliminate anything? It doesn't look like it. Everything seems to have a -1 as their slope. So if I were to rewrite this, I know that y equals, right, -1 times x, what is it, x plus 1, and then x minus 3. Well, first of all, that is D, all right, and I'm looking for something that does not represent it, and D definitely represents it. So another way I can look at it is I do know the vertex. I can write it in y equals a times x minus h squared. A is -1. X minus h, well, it's x minus 1 squared, and then plus k. All right, and k is 4. Well, do I have that anywhere? Let's see. Well, here you go. It's right here, B. Okay, B does not work, right? B is saying it's the same thing. Now, if I were to write it in standard form, what I have to do is I have to multiply this guy out. All right, and if we want to multiply that out, we're using FOIL. Yay! So first terms, all right? So my first terms, we're going to bring it down here. I have y equals negative. My first terms is x squared. All right, then I'm going to have x times -3, so I have -3x, x times 1, so I have plus x, and then I'm going to have, what is that, 1 times -3, which gives you -3. So then I get, simplify, I get y equals -x squared minus 3x plus x, well, that's a minus 2x, and then minus 3. I have a negative on the outside, and they're going to multiply that through, so my negative flips all my signs. So instead of these negatives, it will be positive. All right, so what one actually equals that? Well, C does, right? C actually equals that, and I'm looking for something that doesn't represent it, so C can't count. That means A is your only answer left. So A is the answer you should have gotten. Lastly, let's move down to number 11. It says compare the axis of symmetry and the minimum values for the two functions below. All right, so my axis of symmetry and the minimum values of the two functions below. Well, that means that for the P and Q, right, if I have P and I have Q, well, P equals in here, P equals a -3. And then Q equals a positive 7. So if I want to use the formula, I'm going to have to use the formula of P plus Q divided by 2. So it's -3 plus 7 divided by 2, which equals 4 divided by 2, which equals 2. So this is the axis of symmetry. So you can say over here that the axis of symmetry, right, is x equals 2. All right, well, to find my vertex, which I do have to do, I have to plug it back into the equation. So if I know my x equals 2, I'm going to just plug it back in. So I have h of x equals 2 times 2 plus 3 times 2 minus 7. All right, that becomes h of x equals 2 plus 3 is 5, so 2 times 5. 2 minus 7 is -5. All right, so it ends up being h of x equals negative 50. So h of x equals negative 50. That means my vertex, all right, is going to be 2. Let's move over for some more room. Negative 50. That's my first one. So my first one is 2, negative 50, and my axis of symmetry is 2. Now, all right, now let's solve for the other one. What I kind of want to maybe do is factor, get it into both P and Q form. So if I factor this, right, I'm going to have 21 on top, and I'm going to have negative 21 and negative 4 on the bottom. So factors of 21 are 7 and 3, right, or negative 7, negative 3, and that gives me negative 4. Wow, look at that. So I get negative 7 and a positive 3 as my two factors. Now, if I were to rewrite this, then I'm going to get jx equals x minus 7 and x plus 3. All right, well, if I were to figure out my p and q, my p is going to be 7, my q is going to be negative 3. All right, isn't that kind of the same two values? So I know my axis of symmetry already is going to be x equals 2. The only difference is now I have to plug in that x equals 2 into my equation. So if I plug in that x equals 2, I'm going to have, let me do the pen, I'm going to have 2 minus 7 times 2 plus 3. Now, when I go to solve for that, 2 minus 7 is a negative 5, and 2 plus 3 is a 5. And negative 5 times 5 equals negative 25. So my vertex is going to be 2, negative 25. Well, the difference is my slope for one of them is 2. So if I determine which of the following statements is correct, the functions h of x and j of x have the same axis of symmetry. Okay, that's true. But the minimum value of the h of x is less than the minimum value of j of x. Well, isn't negative 50, right, less than negative 25? So I'm going to say that one's true for now. Let's look at the next ones. The functions h of x and j of x have the same axis of symmetry, but the minimum value of h of x is greater than a minimum value of j of x. Well, that's not true because negative 50 is smaller, so it can't be that. And then the functions h of x and j of x do not have the same axis of symmetry, already not true. And lastly, the functions h of x and j of x do not have the same axis of symmetry, already not true. So these three are not true, so it must be A.